Whether you want more innovation more easily, you are feeling burnt out or overwhelmed, or you simply know that something isn't quite the way you know it can be, you are not alone. I hear the same from leaders every day. On Uncommon Leadership, we explore aligning personal fulfillment with business success, creating authentic teams, and cultivating the resilience, adaptability, and ease necessary to move beyond simply surviving today's challenges into thriving. I'm Michael Hunter with Uncommon Teams, and today we will uncover fresh insights into what it means to lead in this crazy world today. Joining me is Elisabeth Hendrickson. Elisabeth is a well-known speaker, author, and founder of Curious Duck Digital Laboratory. She helps software development organizations deliver more effectively. Her approach blends one-on-one coaching with group work. She works together with you to tackle issues that are holding teams back and to grow their technical leadership skills. The result is improved delivery times, increased efficiency, and better collaboration, all in service of building leading-edge products at a sustainable pace. Welcome, Elisabeth.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here. I appreciate you having me.
You're welcome. I'm happy to have you here. When did you first recognize that integrating your whole self, bringing that into everything that you do, might be a valuable approach?
That is a great question that I don't have a great answer to. Um, I will say that it's always been important to me to live my values. So that's one of the things that I can't even pinpoint a time when I wasn't when I had an abrupt aha and realized that, oh, hey, wouldn't this be cool? But exactly what that meant, I think, probably evolved over the years. And I don't know. I guess I'm not quite sure where to go from there.
Where you said it evolved over time, where did it start and where is it now? And what interesting detours did you take?
Well, I guess where it is now is probably I am much more integrated wholly and you see what you get. I or you get what you see, whatever the right phrase is for that. I now, whereas probably when I was way younger, I didn't really know who I was, and so it. I might have thought that I was being my whole self and not really realized who that was. In terms of where I am now, values like honoring people and inclusion and all of those are really important to me, and I bring those to any engagement that I am involved in. Um, in terms of where I was, like I think of who I was when I was 20, and I had not figured out the world at all, and I was questioning politically. I was questioning basically everything. And so showing up at work with all of who I was, I guess I still did because I showed up as a very curious person, but not one who had a whole lot figured out yet.
If you So you say you didn't have the world figured out yet when you were 20. Does that mean you have it figured out now? And if you do, can you please tell me the answer?
uh, that is an excellent call out because while I think I have a lot of stuff figured out at this point, I imagine that yeah, another 3 decades from now, I'll look back and laugh at how naive I was, just like I look back 3 decades ago and laugh at how naive I was. But I certainly have figured out a whole lot more about how the world works and how things fit together and what I think is important. And especially these days with everything that's going on in the world, I think that humans are really, really important, and treating people well and with dignity and respect and being mindful of inclusiveness is super important. Whereas when I was in my 20s, I was pretty intolerable of anybody who I viewed as incompetent. and very impatient, and to the point where I do somewhere in my archives have a performance review from that time period that said that I did not suffer fools gladly. And at the time, I kind of went, yeah, of course not. And now I look back at it and realize that, oh, that was not a compliment. That did not belong in the strengths. It was not in the strengths category of that performance review. And yes, I should have been embarrassed because it meant that I was not treating people well.
What has helped you learn more about the world and form the values that you have now?
I don't know, just living through a lot of years and seeing a lot of stuff. Seeing people who got hurt emotionally hurt at work in ways that were incredibly damaging, and they lost their self-confidence, and realizing that's not okay. That doesn't mean that I, as a leader, performance management is a thing. So I am not trying to suggest that as a leader, I wouldn't ever manage someone out. I absolutely would. But there are ways to do it and ways not to do it. And so I think one of the big things that informed my worldview was seeing the damage that terrible management can have on someone. I remember somebody who I worked with, I was in my 20s. I had no idea how the world worked. There was a guy who I worked with who was older than me. I have no idea how much older, and he didn't work directly with me. I just sort of knew him from, I worked for a larger company, and I would run into him periodically. And he was let go. I don't know any of the circumstances around it. I have no comment on that. But I remember seeing him at a mall, like not that long after, and his entire body was just like, his whole body language was shrunken. And he had very clearly been hurt. I mean, we recognized each other, and I said, "Hi, how are you doing?" And he was trying to be polite, but he was not doing okay. And it's hard for me to remember that far back to remember exactly what we said or exactly how I knew he was not okay because of the whole job thing. But I remember knowing that it was related to that. And that particular incident definitely sat with me. At the same company, there was somebody else who I was friendly with but didn't work with directly. And she had just gotten like an award for having been there for some number of years, some period of time. But then they also had changed her job to one that she was not qualified for and managed her out on the basis of something that she never signed up for. And she was also just devastated by this. And so these kinds of things, like I witnessed them, I was not directly involved, but they were not okay. Which doesn't mean I didn't completely screw up when later I did have leadership responsibilities. But every one of the incidents where I saw the aftermath of somebody getting hurt informed my intention to avoid doing that to anybody ever under any circumstance.
That mirrors some of the experiences that drove my own shift from debugging code to helping people debug themselves. Of a whole series of experiences like that where I realized this is not a technical problem. This is entirely a people problem. And oh my gosh, that means that actually all of the technical problems I think I'm dealing with are really people problems. Maybe I should go work on that stuff because that's going to be way more impactful.
100%. So Jerry Weinberg was one of my teachers, and that is exactly why he ended up seeking out Virginia Satir. So Virginia Satir was known for her systems approach to family therapy. She treated the family as a system where little Susie would be brought in to be fixed, and she would work with the whole family and discover that little Susie was acting out, and mom was an alcoholic, dad was a workaholic and absent all the time, and the family dynamic was, and so she would work with the whole family. That was what she was known for. Jerry had come to that same realization that it's all about the people, and that he didn't have a lot of skills then at the time with dealing with people. He went and studied with Virginia Satir for a while, and then he took everything that he learned from her and applied it to organizational behavior in a software development organization kind of context. And that was then all of the later work that he did. He taught a workshop called Problem Solving Leadership, which these days is still ongoing, even though he's passed away. Esther Derby and Don Gray, and I can't remember who else, but they teach it. So the class has lived on, which is great because it's so powerful. But all of that came out of the recognition that we needed to study with the people who study humans and then apply that in organizations so that we can lead authentically.
Which brings up all the squishy people stuff. That's what all the problems actually are, and that people often don't want to deal with, and especially people in tech. So many have told me they got into software so they didn't have to deal with people, emotions, all the squishy stuff. How do you bring this in to the people you work with and help them feel safe and empowered to talk about this stuff, and then, by the way, to bring their unique talents into everything that they do?
Very carefully. One of the things that I did have to learn, because I took a lot of what I learned from Jerry and I was applying it, and it was incredibly useful. But I also I learned how much I had to back up, because one of the things I've learned is that consent matters more than anything else. And essentially, doing something that looks even vaguely like therapy with someone who didn't consent is so not cool. It's not okay. Inviting them to not just bring their whole selves to work, but to share with you things that make them incredibly vulnerable in a work context. No, that is between them and whoever they choose to share that part of their life with. So in terms of creating safety, I actually want to be sure that I'm creating safety by creating those boundaries, that we're going to focus on how we all show up at work and work with each other and collaborate and support each other and create an inclusive environment here. But we're not going to ask people to be so incredibly vulnerable that they actually could end up getting hurt even worse. And one of the ways that I learned that was by being a little too vulnerable myself in a work context, and then having that thrown back in my face later and realizing that it is not appropriate to hand anybody that kind of information in a professional context, because it can come back in a way that creates so much. It's fraught with so much danger. So part of how I create safety is by not making it safe to talk about literally everything.
Showing up as our full self doesn't have to mean, as you say, bringing every little
Right.
detail along and out on display. We do need to be able to say something like, I got a lot of stuff going on. Don't really want to talk about it here. And for that to be okay with everyone. Mm-hmm. And then not to have to go farther than that.
100%. Yes.
And then the conversation maybe is...
Exactly. Yes, that is exactly... Yes.
How would you like us to support you? How can we help you out? You're a valuable part of this team. How can we adjust so that you can take care of what you need in the rest of your life, and also be happy to be here with us and give us what you can while you're going through this rough time?
Yep.
For leaders who even that much is super scary, how do you suggest they get started?
I've been saying for a while, and I don't know if it's appropriate. This is one of those things I'll probably look back on in 20 years and think, oh, I needed to find a better way to express what I meant. But I've been thinking for quite a while that anybody who's especially an executive leadership position would do well to go to therapy. Because the coming back to your actual question was how do you get them comfortable with it? Invite them to start by understanding themselves better, because the people who are unaware of the extent to which they're allowing all that stuff that's in the back of their head to unconsciously come out, they do so much damage. And so becoming internally aware of what's going on for yourself and the drivers that make you do the things, whatever it is that you do, um, the more you understand yourself, the more you're going to be able to accept wherever somebody else is and deal with what's right there instead of all of the other stuff that is context in your head. So self-reflection is the first step, I think. And to be super clear, I do not mean that as an executive, I hold sessions where I ask my reports to self-reflect. That is not what I'm saying. But I am saying that as a coach, I do sometimes end up suggesting somebody might want to think about where a particular thing is coming from. They don't need to talk to me about it because that's a different conversation, but maybe they should be reflecting on that where did that assumption come from, or that belief that they hold.
How do you know for yourself where the line is as you're talking, as you're working with someone that you're coaching on what's okay to bring into that space and what is best left out of it?
The work is always okay. That specifically the work that, say you're in an organization, you are on a mission to, you have an initiative, you're doing a release, you're working on some software, there is work. You can very clearly delineate this is the work. That's always okay. Family of origin, never okay. Nope. The people who really want to like have a hey, favorite childhood memory as the icebreaker in a meeting, I hate that. Because I've known people who are in a professional context who had really crappy childhoods, and it's going to be really hard for them to come up with a memory that is like, okay, this one is safe enough for me to bring into this context. So let's not create that for them. Let's just not do anything that invokes the risk that childhood trauma is going to show up at the table. So if those are two poles, right? Like family of origin, definitely out. Work, definitely in. There does end up being a blending somewhere in there. Like, does this mean you're never allowed to ask, hey, how was your weekend? What did you do? No, that's not what I'm suggesting. But I think that you do need to be aware of when you're in that squishy middle and watch for any signals of discomfort and then back away, because you don't need to know what they did over the weekend and they might not want to tell you. So that's kind of the heuristic that at least I use.
I'm glad it's a heuristic and not a rule, because I mostly don't believe in rules. I'd say I don't believe in rules, but then that's a rule. It, so this is why leadership is so hard, because it's all heuristics. And heuristics are infallible, or
100%.
are
Yeah.
fallible, not infallible. They're very fallible. In knowing which heuristic to apply at any point in time is itself a heuristic, and so of course fails left and right. So when we as a leader do something, say something that turns out to have not create the outcome we are hoping for, how do we pull back from that?
I can think lots of outcomes, entire categories of outcomes. Can you say more about what you're really asking? Because like if the project that I'm on fails, that's a different category than I recognize that I have caused an individual harm.
Yes, that direction. Talking with someone, or I have this brilliant icebreaker to do in a meeting, I realize as I say it, or 3 people in, that, oh, the next person talking, that's not going to be a good thing for Or simply, I'm talking with you.
Yep.
Some comment I say, I brings in something that I realize, oh, am I saying this because I know this thing about you that really is irrelevant to the conversation? And oh my gosh, I'm bringing in biases that I didn't even know were there.
Totally. No, we're all fallible. I mean, I have my mistakes in life were not solely in my 20s. I've made plenty of mistakes. I think that the important thing is to first recognize that consent is the most important thing, and to notice when you maybe don't have actual consent, when you're making the assumption that a thing is okay. This is where the heuristics kick in, because if it's about the work and somebody acts like that you don't have consent, like they're kind of doing the I'm going to hide what I'm working on and not talk to you about it, and you're the leader responsible for that thing, yeah, they don't get to do that. But when we're talking about stuff in that squishy middle, at any point, if you get the sense that somebody didn't consent, then it's time to back away. If you get signals that you caused harm, then a genuine apology, like not, oh, I'm sorry you feel that way. That is not a genuine apology. I'm sorry I said the thing and I can see that you feel the way. I caused harm and I will endeavor not to do that in the future. Genuine apology followed by a change in behavior. That's being able to do that is really important. Um, and coming into every situation with a mindset of curiosity and willingness to learn. I think that those are the keys.
So it's admitting that we're human, asking for forgiveness, maybe, and seeing how we'll try to do better.
Right. We are all fallible.
When we're on the other side, and it's not maybe feeling so safe to say, hey, that I don't like the way that landed. How can we let the other person know?
I actually love the words you just used. I don't like the way that landed. That using an iMessage, that especially in a corporate setting, so that you recognize the context that you're in. I don't like the way that landed. Feels very professional to me. It's totally reasonable to stand up for yourself, and if it's not, you want to be kind of examining the extent to which there is alignment between your values and where you find yourself. But being able to say, hey, I don't feel good about what just happened. I don't like the way that landed. That thing you just said, using situation, behavior, impact kind of feedback, even if you're managing up, like your manager just did a thing and you don't like it and it doesn't feel good, being able to say, hey, uh, that interaction didn't feel great to me and I'd like to talk to you about that. I actually think that has to be an okay thing in any context.
If that's not an okay thing, or it doesn't feel an okay thing, maybe it's never been talked about, how can we bring up that discussion so that we can decide as a team that whether it is an okay thing?
I was picturing a one-on-one conversation, which is different because then a one-on-one conversation, um, you are not trying to simultaneously figure out how a whole bunch of people are reacting to what you're saying, and also it's a little bit less like maybe it depends on the power dynamic and the person who's speaking and doesn't feel good about what happened, but it's not quite the same as feeling like an entire group of people are going to kind of gang up on you. But within a team setting, like I'm picturing a situation that we had with a dynamic with a team where there was somebody who was I'm picturing a couple of different scenarios actually right now, where one person was feeling like the team was excluding them. And how do you call that out in a way, and some of the fears that some of the situations that I'm picturing, I'm now picturing actually three different situations with a similar kind of dynamic, but the concern that the person who was feeling hurt would have bringing to the group as a whole group would be a fear of being perceived as weak, a fear of losing respect, a fear of being even further ostracized because they were talking about those squishy human things instead of doing the we only talk about competence here kind of thing. And in that case, then you're going to modulate the language, certainly. But I still think that it is completely reasonable to say you don't even have to use the F word, the feeling word. You can say something like, "Hey, that thing that just happened, I'd I'd like us to consider altering our working agreements." You notice that the word feel didn't show up there, and you can use the word think if that feels safer, but you still get to say, this wasn't okay with me. You just can choose different words that maybe are going to be a little bit less controversial in an organization that does not recognize that feelings are real things.
And we can do the same thing if one on one, if speaking out up in the group is too scary. So the big picture heuristic I'm sensing here then is one, if something isn't fitting, then talk about it. And two, find a way to talk about it that fits into that environment, that culture. What do we do then if the culture is we don't talk about things? And I can't just go find another job because reasons.
Yeah. I mean, you also get to decide this is why consent is so important. At a certain point, in a sufficiently toxic environment, sometimes the best thing that you can do is partition your life so that you can create safety for yourself and not be as affected. I mean, you can't not be affected. We are all still human, but I don't think it's healthy. I don't think it's a healthy thing for in general for anybody because there's a phrase. I don't know if it's a Brene Brown phrase or if it's somebody else, but hurt people hurt people. So the more you kind of try to shape yourself into a toxic environment, and the more hurt you are by the toxic environment, the more likely you are to perpetuate the toxic environment. And now it just gets worse and worse and worse. So it's not healthy for you. It's not healthy for anybody else in the organization to perpetuate that. But sometimes, from a survival standpoint, I need this job because I need my health care in the US. Healthcare is tied to your employment. And if you need the job because you need your health care, you need the job because you need the salary, you don't have a big buffer, you don't have the luxury of being without an income, and the job market blows, yeah, you might choose that you are simply going to partition your life such that what you bring to work isn't your whole self. It is the part of you that has enough heat shield to deal with the toxicity. I don't recommend it, but I recognize that it is a necessity if it's, the only way that you can stay safe enough. I would suggest putting out trial balloons occasionally because sometimes what happens is the call is coming from inside the house. And what feels like it would be disastrously unsafe actually is the moment of courage that unlocks something for the rest of the organization too. So trying occasionally, put something that's a little bit daring out there and see what the reception is. You might be able to shift the culture enough that you don't have to partition yourself. Also, keep interviewing.
This reminds me of the offered suggestion in group environments that ask the quote dumb question, because whatever question you have, almost certainly 80% of everyone else has also. Find a way to state the uncomfortable thing, because probably most of the other people around you are also uncomfortable about this. And painful as it is to anticipate, pricking that boil and letting all the pus run out and be a goopy mess for a little bit can actually then bring healing way faster than it feels like it's going to, while we are looking at the pin and the sore and resisting that first poke.
I'm sorry, that was very visceral. Ew. But I acknowledge the accuracy.
This is a great example of what we're talking about, that I inadvertently caused you harm with the metaphor I picked.
As harms go, this was nothing. We're all good. It's all good.
Which is great. There's
you're
that
reminding
moment
me.
where there was still that moment where you were in distress.
Oh no! As distress goes, like you said, we're all good. You're reminding me of how I have experienced where when someone is finally willing to say the truth, it's like breaking a dam. Because now other people are willing to say, yeah, you're right. There is no way we're making that deadline. You're right. There's no way this architecture is ever going to work. You're right. This gigantic rewrite that we have embarked upon is a terrible idea, or whatever the thing is, right? Like the truth that nobody was willing to acknowledge because they were afraid. And this is actually what I mean by the call is coming from inside the house, where oftentimes the fears are not because of the current environment. They're because of the accumulated set of experiences that people have had, coupled with a sense of insecurity that comes from, I can't afford to lose this job. And it can be so freeing. I at one point in one job, I got the nickname of Namer of Elephants, because I felt secure enough. Like, you can fire me, that's fine. And there is power in feeling like, I'm going to do the very best that I can and act in integrity and say what I believe to be true, and do that with kindness and not ever trying to attack or blame the people in the system, but still be willing to basically say, hey, I can't help but notice that this group appears to make decisions where silence is considered consent, and I don't think it is. Can we check that assumption? That's a terrifying thing to say in a group setting, because now everybody's on the spot. And there will be shuffling of chairs and feet and weird looks, because now I'm inviting them to say what's true for them. And then if somebody does and is like, yeah, I know I didn't say anything, but I actually think that this is the wrong path. Now you get to shift the conversation and have the right the real conversation. But it takes somebody who basically is willing to say, yeah, I'll put it all on the line. You could fire me. It's okay.
This gets straight into my next question. What's the business value of doing all this work? And what I think I just heard you say is the reason the business value to do all this work is that the business gets better. We get the releases done faster. We get the bad architecture out of the way. We get able to hear the information that's going to let us build the thing that customers actually want.
Oh yeah, when you have that lack of psychological safety and everyone is afraid to say what they actually think, you get these whether it's initiatives or long-running releases or whatever, you get these situations where stuff just kind of keeps going with its own momentum, and there is no good business outcome at the end of all of that. I mean, the U.S. court system is littered with lawsuits. That one of my favorite. This is weird, but one of my favorite lawsuit reads is there was a case in the, I think it was the 1980s, state of California against Lockheed. Child support system. And the entire thing, Kem Kaner is the person who first introduced me to this case. The entire thing is just this amazing account of one of those kinds of projects. And I don't remember what the judgment was or how many millions of dollars were lost at stake, whatever. But in terms of outcomes, the outcome was bad. And it was one of those things where I reading through the court documentation, the decision, it looks to me like there were a lot of places where people could have stood up and said, there is no way this is ever going to work. And that didn't happen. So what is the value to the business? Well, if you value your business, you'd better value an environment where it is psychologically safe to be honest about your observations. Save yourself a lot of money and wasted time and actually deliver value.
And by the way, the more that we can do this, the more people are likely to show up excited, engaged, and energized. And then be able to carry out
100%.
the work that we need them to do, and also be able to have these squishy conversations. It's a nice reinforcing loop.
Yep.
I need a squishy thing that says squishy.
Squishy. I have a squishy duck. Squishy. It's not that squishy, actually.
We've talked a lot about this maybe already. How else do you help people find their way through all the change, uncertainty, and overwhelm that is filling life up these days?
Yeah, we live in really weird times. And the short answer is, other than acknowledging that we're all human and all the things that we've already talked about, when you look at some of what's happening and the extent to which just existing has become dangerous for some people in the U.S., there is literally nothing that I can do that's going to create safety for them. It would be a lie to pretend that I could. And so the only other thing that I know to do is be present and acknowledge the reality of whatever it is that they're feeling, and not try to pretend that I can do something that I simply cannot. But I guess that my strategy really boils down to the aphorism, be kind, for everyone is fighting a hard battle, something like that. I'm getting the quote wrong. But recognizing that I don't know what's going on for anybody, and it's none of my business to ask, but to simply be kind in every interaction. That's different from nice, but to genuinely care about the other person and their well-being, and do my best to not cause harm. That is the best that I know how to do.
And since it can be scary to tell people that we notice they're having a rough time, and we may actually be misinterpreting, we don't even have to say, hey, Elisabeth, I see you're having a really rough time. Let me know how I can help. We can do a...
No, don't say that.
It can be enough.
Because now I'm like, no, I know you weren't saying that to me, but that can make somebody feel very insecure. Like, wait, what signals am I leaking? How, right?
Right.
Like,
if they are having a rough time and don't want to talk about it, that can be terrifying. And if they're not having a rough time, then that could be also be equally terrifying, because, oh my gosh, what am I doing to make you think that I'm having a rough time when I'm actually super happy?
Right.
So a really easy way to start is just to say, hey team, I am here for you let me know how I can help. Whether you are having a rough time, super happy time, whatever's going on, I'd like to help you make your day better.
Yeah, there is this little thing that I have to acknowledge in the back of my head, and that is the difference between nice and kind. Because here's the thing. Let's imagine that you're a software engineering manager and you want everybody to feel supported, but at the same time, there is this person who is not actually doing well at work. You can't just be nice about it. Because if that person isn't pulling their weight on the team, then that creates this really super awkward dynamic for the team where the team is having to make up for this person, cover for them. It can create resentment. It can create problems. And so part of being supportive for the team is also not confusing nice and kind. There are times when the kindest thing that you can do is have the hard, awkward conversations in order to protect the health of the whole team as opposed to the happiness of the individuals.
Yes, thank you. Just because we can always offer to help. And we don't always have to then do what someone asked for. If someone says, Michael, what's most going to help is if I only need to work an hour a week, that's not probably going to work. Unless you can show me that in that hour, you can get done everything that everyone else that we need you to do in that week, which most people aren't going to be able to do. If you're super genius, then great.
I'd argue it still doesn't work.
I haven't actually.
Nah, it's still going to breed resentment. I'll argue it still doesn't work, but that's neither here nor there. We don't have to go down that rabbit hole.
There's all sorts of bigger dynamics that might not work. Yes, you're right. One of the perils of making things up off the top of my head. And yes, that.
No. I'm so sorry. I did not mean to criticize your example.
I'm not taking it.
This is just one of those really hard, squishy topics for anybody who's Sorry?
Yes. Thank you for pointing that out, because it's so easy to slide from kind into nice. I worked for a company that everyone knew. Everyone openly talked about company name Nice. We are company name Nice here. And decisions could take a really long time to get made because everyone was Acme Corp nice.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Where what they really needed to be was Acme Corp kind.
Oh, and the toxicity that Acme Corp nice can breed, where it's a passive aggressive environment, and so you constantly now have to be hyper vigilant for the little signals. It's exhausting. Absolutely exhausting.
And what if I
so much from my point of view, it's so much better to be diplomatic but direct.
Yes, 100%. Elisabeth, for people who would like to get in touch with you to have you come work with them, to talk more about getting into the squishy people stuff in a way that's safe in their maybe super toxic environment, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Probably LinkedIn. And I can make sure that you've got the link to my LinkedIn profile so that I'm easy to find. I only do 2 social things. There's the LinkedIn and Mastodon. Mastodon gets more of my spicier thoughts. LinkedIn gets more of my work thoughts. And I have a blog on my website that I have not updated lately. My website is curiousduck.io.
And you have a YouTube also, right?
I do. Yes, I do. It's the handle is at CuriousDuckDev.
And we'll have all those links in our show notes. What would you like to leave our audience today with?
Stay safe and comfortable, everybody. It's wild out there right now. I hope that you and your families and your loved ones and your coworkers and your colleagues and everybody you care about are all safe, and that you are able to find whatever joy you can.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for a wonderful conversation today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Michael.
You're welcome. And thank you, audience, for joining us today. Elizabeth and I would love to know what is bringing you joy right now. Thanks, and have a great day.